When I first started reading this book, I genuinely hated the main character. She was so foggy, so passive, so almost non-existent in her own life, to the point where every time I was reading the book, I was screaming at her, why don't you do something? Just wake up. And then it suddenly dawned on me why I resented this character so much. And it's because she reminded me of my own mother. This character is someone who is quietly repeating the same cycle of trauma that was handed down to her, who she got it from her own mother, who got it from her own mother, who got it from hers. This cycle is something that is so old and so ancient that no one really remembers where they got it from in the first place. It's just the same water that everyone swims in. And it wasn't until I finished the book that I finally understood something that took me years of therapy to finally start to comprehend. And it's that all these women, this character, and just like my mother, they all have been put down into the oldest trap for women. Not marriage, not a particularly bad marriage, but motherhood. Because here is the thing that not many people dare to say out loud, and it's that as an individual, you can lose your entire personhood, your entire identity, your time, your body, your mind, your name even, to your children, to your husband, to your in-laws, to your family, or even to your own extended family and friends. Whereas for men, men get to keep their own personhood. They are fathers, they are husbands, but they are themselves first and most importantly. Whereas for a woman, the moment you give birth, you completely disappear. You are not your own person. You are not an individual. You are a mother. You are someone's child. You are someone's husband. You are the expectations that people put on you. And slowly but surely, you become nothing but a mother, a wife, a servant for the household, for your in-laws, for your extended family, someone who prioritizes people's comfort for their own sacrifice. And today, I want to talk about the book that finally put language to this first trap, which is The First House by Avni Doshi. Hello, my gorgeous viewers and readers. Welcome back and welcome if you're new. I hope your weekend was filled with rest, good books, and at least one moment of doing absolutely nothing for anybody else. Today's book is a brand new release from Avni Doshi, who is the author of Burnt Sugar. When I heard that she was releasing a second novel, I was very excited and very fascinated by the topic. And I have to say my thanks to Viking Books because they very kindly sent the book to me earlier. So I had early access to this book. And honestly, I've been wanting to talk about this book for ages because this is fantastic. And the book that we will be reviewing today is The First House by Avni Doshi, of course. And again, as I always mentioned in my videos, just because this book was very kindly sent to me by Viking Books, again, thank you so much. That doesn't mean that I will not be honest and that I will embellish anything about this book or the author or anything. So the opinions that you will get or that you will see in this book are 100% mine and are 100% honest. I would rather lose deals than lie to you. Now that we have left this out of the way, let's get into the book. Just as a quick summary for those who haven't read the book yet, this book starts with bare tea. So the story starts with a woman's husband walking into their bedroom and literally telling the wife or telling the main character that he doesn't want to be married anymore, that he wants a divorce, that marriage was never for him, that monogamy doesn't work, that he's not interested in monogamy, that he's not interested in her, and that he just wants to break up the marriage. After 13 years of being married, after having a house, a mortgage together, having 2 children, he says that he just wants out, that this is not working, that he doesn't love her anymore, and that he just wants to be single. And obviously, she is absolutely shook. She is blindsided because up until this point, she thought that they had a perfect marriage. Like, obviously, there were fights and there were disagreements, but she thought that she had met their guy. She was obsessed with him. And also, she thought that they were literally having an almost perfect marriage. But then through the weeks, or as the time passes, she starts realizing what is going on in her life. She is a stay-at-home mom. She is completely dependent on him. She has no job. She doesn't know how to swim. She doesn't know how to drive. Her whole life is literally just waiting for her children to come home, or for the husband to come home. She has this desire of being a writer, but she doesn't really write that much. She has an unhealthy obsession with astrology for some reason. But yeah, the only thing that she does is wait until the children come back, attend the children, attend the husband, and then just obsess over astrology. But over these few weeks, once the husband leaves the house to live in a hotel, and then the children are going to school, she starts reminiscing about her marriage, about the relationship that she had with him, and slowly starts picking up on red flags and on things that they didn't seem as important when they started living together, or when their marriage started. But then now she sees that these were bad signs for their marriage. And over the course of a single summer of 2 months, we see her mind quickly unravel. She becomes obsessed, even more obsessed with astrology. She starts looking into mythology, into religion, to understand what has happened. She looks into the relationships that she has, into her own identity, the relationship that she had with her ex-husband, with her children, with her daughters, with her parents, and even with her whole entire community, to understand why has she made the decisions that she has made, and why has she gotten to the point of no return. This book truly felt like a battlefield. It truly felt like a war, not only between two people who were supposed to love each other, or who once loved each other, but also an internal war between what you are supposed to be. So the eternal mom, the eternal daughter, the eternal wife, but also the identity that you are supposed to have, the one that is truly yours and no one can own. What fascinated me the most about this book wasn't the mechanics of the divorce itself, but what the divorce exposed. Because the moment the marriage collapses, so does Doshi's identity. Suddenly, she is not a mother and she is not a wife. She is a divorcee in a community that marriage, or where family and marriage are extremely protected. But underneath all these collapse, Doshi actually asks herself three things. The first one is the pressure that she had to become a wife and to become a mother when she didn't necessarily want to be one. Also, the mysticism and the sacredness of motherhood rather than the reality of it. And last but most importantly, the way motherhood and the way nurturing has been considered and has been attached to women as a way to create stereotypes and archetypes. Starting with the first point, which is the social pressure of motherhood and settling down. Nearly in every single culture, we see the same exact script, which is become an adult, get a job, find a partner, get a house, get married, and have children. And on paper, this is a shared responsibility that we equally have to follow, both men and women. But in reality, this is wildly gendered. In reality, men get a lot more leniency at almost every single stage of this script. We even have endearing nicknames for all these men who never settle down. We call them the eternal bachelors. Men in their 40s and their 50s who never get married, who never have children, and they are considered charming, successful, and even are sometimes envied. We have plenty of examples of these going on in our society, but women never get the same grace. Because women in their 30s who are childless and unmarried are not women who are still finding themselves. They are a cautionary tale. They are women who are unloved, who are undesirable, who no one wants and they are discarded, whose biological clock is off the charts and it has completely desiccated them and they are just dry, barren and infertile. And also they are women who no one else wants. This unmarried woman is someone who is meant to be pitied, gossiped, and even shunned from the center of the family. Because what this woman represents is a failure of womanhood. She hasn't served her purpose, so therefore she has to be shunned. She has to be ashamed, and she has to be humiliated. And this is something that we see in the book very clearly, especially when we see the comparison between the main character and his sister. So her sister is 6 years older than her, but she is unmarried. She has no partners, and also she has no children. So she's the one taking care of the parents. And we see the constant comparison between the two. We see how the older sister is shamed and is pitied, but also gossiped about the fact that she doesn't have a partner, that she is not married, that she doesn't have children. She is considered a shame for the family, except when she is actually being useful, when she is actually taking care of the family, of the parents. The thing here is that this constant comparison between the sisters not only creates resentment between the two, but also it is used as a way to use the older sister as a cautionary tale, because she is unmarried. She is not following the expectations that society and the family has of her. So therefore, she is meant to be ashamed. She is meant to be pitied, but also most importantly, she is meant to be used as a cautionary tale. If you don't behave, no one will want you. So therefore, you will be miserable. The second point is the unrealistic mysticism of motherhood. Motherhood has been painted as something that is sacred, something that is truly divine, and something that only women can do, meaning that that is our only purpose on earth. Since childhood, we have been told that that is something that is inherent into us, that our biological clock exists because our own true purpose is to become someone's mother. And we don't really understand our purpose on earth until we have children, until we have something that we love so much that suddenly everything makes sense. And media has reinforced this endlessly. We always see the saint mother, the one who is endlessly patient, who is constantly cleaning up after other people's disasters, who is sacrificing herself for everyone else but herself, who is doing everything for everyone, who barely sleeps, who is always at the verge of a mental breakdown. But that figure, that presentation of motherhood has been beatified, but also has been constantly and endlessly romanticized. We see these women, this image of a woman who is nothing but the endless glue of a family. And even though the image of the saint mother changed over time as culture changed as well, we still see the same image. A woman is only ever a potential mother, and a mother is only ever a sacrificial lamb, constantly sacrificing herself for other people's well-being and happiness. But now we have the internet, and for the first time, women are actually telling the truth about motherhood, the loneliness, the invisible workload, the loss of identity, but most importantly, the realization that they were never told the whole truth about motherhood. Their mothers experienced that same loneliness. So did their grandmothers, so did the great grandmothers, but no one bothered to tell them about this suffering because this suffering was normalized into silence. And this is something that is very clear in this book. We see how the main character replicates the same toxic and generational behaviors that we see in her parents' relationship. The financial dependency, the emotional immaturity, the physical, mental, and psychological abuse that both parents do to their children. But most importantly, the desire to stay in that relationship, in that unhappy marriage, unhappy and abusive marriage, just for optics, just to ensure that she is not shunned by her community, but also that she is not critiqued by her own family. And in the process of this, we also see her passing this generational trauma to her daughters, just like her own mother did. We see her confiding into her daughters, just using them as a therapist and using them as an emotional crutch. We also see how she is constantly depending on her eldest daughter to either cook dinner or either maintain the house and just ensure that her youngest sister is taken care of because the mother cannot do so. But also, most importantly, we see how she tries to villainize the father. We see how she talks shit about the husband to her daughters in order to have someone by her side, in order to have the support that she so clearly needs. And this is exactly how generational trauma works for women. We see all this exhaustion, all this unhappiness, all this emotional abuse slowly trickling down from generation to generation. Our grandmothers passed it on to our mothers, and our mothers passed it on to us, unless someone stops and names this same issue and actually behaves differently. But because of patriarchy and misogyny, many of our mothers, many of our grandmothers haven't had a say in this decision. Now, going into the third topic, and the one that infuriates me the most, is the archetype of a mother. Because being a mother or motherhood is not only something social, but it has also been considered a part of science. Psychologists in the 20th century were obsessed with building frameworks around archetypes and personalities, more specifically Jungian psychology. All of them were obsessed with categorizing women or categorizing people, but women specifically. And out of all these archetypes, all these different theories, there is one that is imperative for all theories to have, and it's the archetype of mother. The eternal nurturing, the eternal saint, the one that constantly sacrifices herself for everyone, the one that builds the family, the one that is the glue. Everything that she is a mother. The worst part is that this archetype has always been considered a natural law, meaning that all women have this archetype of mother, meaning that we are all nurturing or caring, that we have a natural talent to take care of people. And that is extremely damaging, not only because we are wrongly represented as a unit, that we all have a natural instinct to be mothers or to care for children, but also that it shows motherhood as something that is natural rather than exhausting and learned. This also lets men keep their identities. They can keep their jobs, their careers, their hobbies, their friendships, because they are not tied to an archetype of father, because they are allegedly not considered naturally talented to care, to nurture, or to keep the family afloat, unlike women, unlike new mothers. So these archetypes, these theories are nothing but a trap to keep women into the family, to keep women tied to motherhood. I will be completely honest with you guys. I absolutely adore this book. I devoured it. I literally read it in one day, but I found this book so difficult to read because it was so triggering. Like, I know that this is bad to say, but I could not for the life of me empathize with this main character. I was reading the story through the daughter's perspective, and I think this is my own personal baggage, because rationally I can understand that this is the story of someone who is going through a divorce after an abusive relationship, and someone who is extremely dependent on not only the abuser but also that has been conditioned culturally to stay in that unhappy marriage and to sacrifice themselves. Rationally, completely understandable. Like, my brain can understand it, but then emotionally, and through all the experiences that I have had in my own life, I cannot empathize with her, because I cannot see how logically you could be in that position. Like, for example, when the main character tells her eldest daughter what is going on, meaning that the husband has left them, obviously the daughter grows resentment towards him and then starts disliking him and just like refusing his touch. And this is something that the main character is happy about, meaning that she understands that that is not something that she should be happy about, that she shouldn't rejoice on her eldest daughter rejecting her father, but she is happy about it nonetheless because that makes the husband suffer. And suddenly, when I read that, it transported me to when I was 10 years old and my mother did the same with her grandparents, like with her parents. So she will always tells us, my sister and I, how horrible our grandparents were to her. And obviously I grew resentment towards them. I literally refused their touch. I didn't want to meet them. I didn't want to talk to them because I was like, how dare you do this to my own mother, to the person I love most? And my mother was so happy about me rejecting them because she felt as if she was justified. And that is exactly what the main character does. And I was so triggered when I was reading this book. I was like, I'm reading a story about my mom. But what messed me up the most is the fact that even though I could not empathize with the main character because I felt so triggered, I also got the opportunity to also understand how generational trauma works in the middle of the ladder, right? Because I understand, or I thought I understood how generational trauma worked with my grandparents and how it worked with me. But I cannot understand, or I could not empathize with my mother not wanting to break the cycle because she was very aware. And I think this main character is also very aware of these generational trauma and these generational behaviors that she is doing that are harming her daughters, but she doesn't know how to stop them. And like, whilst I initially could not empathize with her saying, like, because I was thinking this is what you have to do in order for you to stop these behaviors or for you to stop this line of suffering, and then she wasn't doing it. The more I read the book, or when I finished reading the book, I realized that the actual trauma that she has and that my mother also has is the lack of identity. Because Doshi is so set into all the identities that have been put onto her. So mother, wife, daughter-in-law, daughter, friend. She is so set into those identities that when all these identities collapse, suddenly she is no one. And this book is the journey of her trying to find her identity, trying to find herself, which in astrology is the first house. That is the title of the book. And I think this book, after I finished it, made me realize that that is exactly what was missing with my mother and all the women that have experienced generational trauma, meaning that they have been so lost into the identities that other people have put onto them that they have forgotten their own identity, or they didn't even have this identity in the first place because they were nothing more than the identities that other people put onto them. As a quick conclusion, the first house by Avni Doshi has been as revealing as it has been triggering. Not only I've had the opportunity to learn about generational trauma through another culture or through another culture's perspective, but I've also had the opportunity to learn more about generational trauma through a first person perspective, especially through someone who is actively or subconsciously passing down this generational trauma. This book has also given me the opportunity to reflect more on my own generational trauma and my own triggers, and also most importantly my relationship with my own mother, and also has given me the chance for me to understand her perspective a little bit more, which obviously I am very thankful for. So if you want to learn more about generational trauma, or you want to feel triggered with your own, please make sure that you pick up The First House by Avni Doshi, which is now available in all bookstores and also in Amazon. Please make sure that you pick it up because this is a great opportunity and a great story for other people to learn. that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching and thank you for staying until the end. If you like this video, please make sure that you like and subscribe to my channel. And also, you can follow me on my social media. I post there every day and I will post a lot more content about The First House by Avni Doshi. And now, before you go, I would love to ask you guys a question. Do you have, by any chance, any generational trauma? And also, what are the things that trigger this trauma the most? For me, it's when I hear stories about mothers, but most importantly, when I hear mothers talking about how dependent they are to people that don't serve them any purpose and stay there in that relationship, even if they know that this actively harms them or hurts them or their children. That is the one thing that really triggers me, because that is something that my mother used to do when we were younger. So yeah, please tell me, what are your generational traumas? I would love to know them and we can share and just be each other's support. But yeah, again, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching and I hope I will see you next week. Bye guys.